Greetings, this is Vane and welcome back to Let's Play Mordor Depths of Dejenol, where we've been kind of grinding the first level for lots of stuff, because I mean I've done this more than a few times, and because it is a constant grind, and I hope you have fun enjoying the constant grind, seeing monsters flick up and then disappear as we kill them very quickly on our hunt for tomes. You know, because a lot of this is muscle memory, it's kind of, it allows me to kind of zone out a bit and just kind of waffle away, which is good because it means that well, for me it's a kind of a stream of consciousness. It goes like basically brain to mouth about whatever I feel like talking about, you know. I mean, the truth is, yeah, I'm recording what I'm saying, and it'd be interesting for me when if I ever decide to go back and watch it, but I won't remember it. I don't think I'll remember a lot about what I'm saying. I mean, to be honest, my memory is so bad, I'm lucky that I can actually recap previous episode that I just recorded 10 minutes ago. You know, depending on how strong the memory is, I might remember like what I recorded a few days ago in vague terms, but I probably wouldn't remember what I said, and mostly that's because, I mean, I can look at this and see the map and say, okay, this is what I was doing, this is the party I had, this is what, because you can sort of see it in the state of the party. And I mean, in this sort of thing, it's like, okay, we're just going around. If I was to restart this episode now, I would basically still do the same pattern. And I'd be able to say, oh, okay, you go up, go round, go down. And basically explore the level in a linear way. To grind experience and to gather tomes, basically. Gather cash for tomes. And try not to die. Whereas, I mean, cause it's, unless I listen to it back, I can't actually necessarily remember what I said. Thus I tend to kind of repeat myself, and often trying to get everything out before I forget, I tend to gobble up what I'm trying to say when I'm speaking. And a lot of this speaking out and recording is basically not so much because of to practice public speaking, but to basically try and build up and practice just talking about things. Because one of the issues that I have with my dyslexia is with multitasking. And therefore, if I write something down to read it out, there will be no emotion. You know, because I'm just reading it out. I mean, you'll be able to tell. I mean, if I'm angry and I'm reading about something that I've written that's a rant, then the whole thing would just be angry. But it wouldn't be like, this is what I'm angry about. It'd be, the whole thing is angry. I mean, I think the biggest problem that I've had in my life, and I've had a few, is basically because I'm intelligent and people can see and tell that I'm intelligent, they tend to think that I'm kind of, the best way is playing the system, that I'm kind of faking having dyslexia because it's so easy when I'm got the support and to see that I'm not, or just to think that actually if you're not actually listening or being able to see just how intelligent I am about and how much I know about stuff, like then check that. But I think you can have a cloak, brown cloak now. Yeah, you can have a brown cloak. Okay, we'll buy you a brown cloak then. But yeah, and we see quite often, because I tend to use like filler phrases like, but yeah, that's basically my mind is trying to catch up and fill in on what I know and trying to remember what I've said, but people think I'm faking it, and it's like, no, this is what I have to deal with. This is what I do. Obviously, as I've got older and had more responsibility, it's become harder. So I can express myself in email and text and write things like blogs and stuff like that. In fact, I'm quite famous for my wall of texts. My word salad, because it's literally, okay, a data dump about everything. You know, we're easily talking, 500 words. And it'll be quite powerfully structured, there'll be a coherent argument, etc. And a lot of that is because it's written down, I can remember it, I can reorganise my thoughts to make a compelling argument. I can break down my points, and whereas when I speak, I think all that goes out the window. So I tend to trail off and wander off and go on a tangent, and it takes a lot of work for me to actually remember. Not just what I'm saying, but to remember the point, and when I've strayed too far, I would just bounce back. I mean, when I am capable, because it's like to do with cognitive load, basically. I can remember something, and it's like, okay. It'll be like if I raise something that's important to me, and then we go off on a tangent. I can, after 15 minutes, just kind of, regardless where the conversation, it'll be a case of, right, we're going back to this topic. And it will just bring back, and people are like, how do you remember that? And it's like, well, I made a specific point to remember that. But in doing so, pretty much everything else is gone. And people are like, oh, well, why don't you make notes? Well, it's like, well, because if I'm making notes, then I'm not, then I'm focused on note taking and not listening. It's hard for me to do both at the same time. And when I say hard, I mean hard. Because it is mentally and physically draining for me to do that. To the point that if I spend too much time trying to multitask, my brain will just shut down and I will pass out. I'll have a migraine that will just shut everything off, and it's like, no, we've had enough. See you later. We go bye-bye now. I think what scares people, which is why they try and... There's this theory that people who are intelligent can't have issues, they can't be ill. You know. I think I just done all this. You see, I mean, I completely forgot that I'd done all that. I wasn't paying attention, and that's the problem. I have to pay attention, and as anyone who's with that experience would know, being in that vigilant state where you're paying attention, which takes up a lot of stress, is not something that's easy to maintain for long periods of time, let alone like go a full day. But I've managed to get through basically faking it and masking. To the point that it's kind of... You can class it as a form of autism. It's certainly a form of neurodiversity. It's not specifically autism. But I would say I'd qualify for high-functioning autism. And I don't know if that's because... the problem with it is I don't know if that's because of my dyslexia, meaning I can't process emotions and thoughts at the same time very well, because that's multitasking, which is a possibility, or whether it's actually more an issue of how I process emotions, if at all. I mean, I can be emotional. A lot of people with autism can be emotional. It's how they deal with those emotions that's normally the issue. Well, for their emotional side, and the other thing is more like perceptions and how those emotions are triggered. And you have various types of autism, but most of the types are like some sort of deficit. And unfortunately for people who don't understand, any sort of cognitive deficit basically implies that you're stupid. And most people who do all the diagnosing and stuff like that actually have little actual experience being autistic. They've got no idea, and a lot of the people that they're working with, even if they had that respect, you know, don't necessarily have the ability to communicate how they're feeling. Even I can put it on a piece of paper and communicate extremely well how I'm feeling, because I can put my thoughts together like that. But in person, say I'm doing therapy, I wouldn't really know. It'd be all over the place. It'd just be a random conversation that barely scratches the surface. Bit like most of my rambling here, really, which is kind of why I use this a bit. It depends what mood I'm in, of course, because I mean, if I'm not in a talkative mood, I might just enjoy the music. But if I am in a talkative mood, or I've got it's just, you know, it just comes out. Waffle, 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 waffle. And a lot of it is because sure there. Most of the people who do the diagnosing, they're intelligent. They know there's issues, but they kind of treat as if there's any sort of any sort of illness, as if it's something that lesser people have. You know, rather than something that any human being can have. You know, it's like, oh yeah. And in a way, that's kind of like a protection. It's like if it happens to other people, it won't ever happen to them. So they never have to kind of understand it, let alone deal with it, because all the solutions are like, it's other people that have to. It's always, well, we've got this process and we can do this, but the pain and the effort of actually using those processes are always down to the patient. I mean, there's a saying that a surgeon, before they do anything, should be stabbed or cut, so they know what it's like to be cut open. You know, it's also the saying why doctors make the worst patients, because they have that experience as a patient combined with their experience with the doctor, and it's suddenly all the lies that doctors tell when they do to patients, mainly to keep them calm and to keep them compliant and to make processes work, don't really work for people who are also doctors and know what's going on. I mean, it's like doctors. I mean, patients tend to want to be reassured, so doctors will be like, "Yeah, it'll be all right. We'll do this. It'll probably work." You know, they might know it's got a 1 in 50 chance of working, but they're not going to tell the patient that, because then they might go, "What's the point?" and give up, rather than taking that 1 in 50 chance, which may be what they need to keep alive. I mean, it does happen. But in doing so and having that sort of distance, it's sort of, well, the best way to describe it is it's othering patients. And quite often that can be, well, dehumanizing. Here we got tome of, probably a tome of might actually. I mean, might seems to be the limiting factor for most of our equipment, so yeah, that'll do. So yeah, tends to be, the doctors tend to be quite othering. I mean, it's sort of changed a lot now because a bit though. Especially, I mean, a lot of cases like autism and Crohn's, you know, people, stuff like that. The people, it turns out the people who are studying it and developing it and researching it tend to be all people that have kind of got some experience suffering with it. I mean, there's more. I mean, with my Crohn's disease, for example, I've had like 25 years, if not longer, almost 30 years of basically saying I'm playing on it and I'm lazy and everything's my fault, blah, blah, blah. You know, as if I've chosen to have Crohn's, even though it runs rife in my family. You know, because the current understanding at the time was that Crohn's wasn't hereditary and couldn't be passed on. Completely ignoring the fact that it is running right through my family. I mean, my nan had it. All my aunts and uncles have various bowel problems because of it. It's being diagnosed in my cousins and their children. So yeah. But the people who are doing, the people who experience all these things are actually the ones pushing for research and understanding and helping people because they've grown through a system in many cases where they can see the errors because they've experienced the errors. So they want to change things. I spent 25 years of basically being told by the Department of Work and Pensions I'm lazy and everything's my fault. And then basically you get two people, like two who have actually got any sort of experience with Crohn's, and they're like, okay, I can see that. You know, I sympathise, that sort of thing, because that's what it is, it's the sympathy. And for a lot of people, if you don't have Crohn's, you don't experience what's going through it, then you don't know how bad it can be. Plus, there is the attitude from a lot of people with Crohn's. They get Crohn's diagnosis, but it's managed early, and they go, "Oh, I've got Crohn's. Doesn't stop me from doing such and such." And it's like, well, no, because you got treated for it early. You know, I'm sort of lucky because I got my Crohn's diagnosis early enough that not a lot of damage has been done. But I still had a bowel resection, and I still had issues with my ileostomy reversed and small stricturing of the small bowel and all sorts of things, you know. It still affected my life. I still ended up having my bowel come apart and a hole in my gut and having to hold it in with my hands. You know, not eating for 5 weeks and being fed through a tube in my neck as the weight dropped off and I lost all my upper body strength. and that was at the age of 17, so that was like as I was developing. So even now, I'm not likely to get any of that back. And it might sound like I'm complaining and playing for sympathy, but it's just, that's fact, that's my life. It's a part of my life story. There's no change in that. But it does mean that I can help people who have similar sort of issues, because a lot of the time when you become ill, you go through a kind of, well, it's a crisis of identity, because suddenly you go from being, okay, I'm invincible, I haven't got to worry about anything I can do anything to, hang on a minute, I can't do this anymore. You know, and it's saying that everyone goes through with AIDS, they just put off. But whereas I basically went for, I mean, a lot of the time it's around about retirement age when people get sick. If they have an illness, it can be earlier. And in my case, really early, and in some cases, even earlier. I mean, to be honest, I'm kind of lucky, because even though I had bowel issues as a child, I didn't overly need a lot of surgery as a child. I could easily have done. You look at children who have like cancer, for example, you know, as a child. So there's definitely worse people off than me. There's no denying that. And in a way, I'm quite lucky. But what it means is that I can talk about how I've dealt with it. It took me a long time to learn how to deal with being ill and everything. It was a big part of why I studied kind of psychology and picked up therapy and basic counselling skills, and you know, alongside my interest in D&D, they kind of coincide. It's literally learning tools to help me cope, because with the issues that I have, I want to understand why I'm the way I am and find ways to get around it. But because of that, people either assume that I'm faking it, or I'm doing it for attention, you know. And it's only kind of recently, in the past 5, maybe years or so, that it's like getting any sort of sympathy. And a lot of that is because of age. I mean, I'm 40 now, and it's like you're trying to tell people you're ill and what happened at the age of 25, and they're like, "Why aren't you at work?" You know, unless you've got legs hanging off. People don't think that you can get ill at 25. Or if you do get ill, it's something short term that will be automatically fixed. And it seems that only now that we're getting to the point that actually it's understanding that people can have health issues that can affect their entire lives. You know. I do like this game. Don't get me wrong. It's just where this game is, especially if I'm grinding on the first level, it is quite light. I can use it to basically, it's like doing the washing up for me. I can use it to get stuff off my chest and talk about random stuff and basically process information in ways that's easier, because I can't really, where I have struggled to keep things in my head and process them in my head, if I can verbalise them, then when I hear it, even if it's from me, it goes into a different part of the brain that's better. It goes from the short-term working memory into the mid to long-term memory. So, which is pretty much how I learn, which is why I like role-playing, because it's like role-playing is pretty much a chance to learn through experience, and the realism of role-playing, the more real the game is, the more you can use it as a learning tool. You know, which is why you often get team role-playing in training seminars and that, because it's a chance to practice doing whatever skills. It's a chance to pretend that you're in that situation and how would you do it, even though people don't really know how they're going to be in that situation until they're there. So, anyway, this has been me waffling again, doing Let's Play Mordor. If you like what you're seeing here, be sure to like, subscribe, share and comment. Please consider sponsoring me on Patreon, and until next time, goodbye.